Hey guys, Brett at Russell Marine Products. Today we want to bring you a video on the pros and cons mounting options with our active target or live scope, either on a pole mount or on the shaft of the trolling motor. Stay tuned. All right guys, today we're talking about pros and cons of mounting our active target or our live scope transducer on the shaft of the trolling motor or on an external mounted pole, whether it be a separate pole mount or a pole mount that is motorized attached to your trolling motor. So we get this question a lot about what's better, and I think it really comes down to personal preference. What type of fishing you're going to do, but we want to go over kind of the pros and cons and give you some options of what might be best for you. So first we're going to start on the trolling motor shaft. So pros here are going to be, one, it's no cost. That's what I tell guys when they're unsure. Mount it on the trolling motor shaft. If you don't know if you want to do one or the other, that's a no cost deal. Easy install because all those hardware pieces are going to come with your active target or your live scope. A third pro would be that it's easy to control for you. So as we're moving around on the trolling motor, the foot pedal, wherever I aim that trolling motor, that's where we're going to see. So the guys that really want to be under control, where they're pointing that active target, chasing a fish down, that's going to be a pro, having it on the shaft of the trolling motor because you have full control there. And the fourth and final pro would be we're hands-free. We don't have any foot pedals to mess with or a pole mount that we've got to adjust with our hands. So running that active target or live scope on the shaft, we're hands-free, nothing else that we've got to mess with. Now let's talk about the cons to having that active target or live scope on the shaft. One, the biggest reason is spot lock. So when we put our trolling motor in spot lock, all of our trolling motors, Ultrex, Garmin Force, the Lowrance Ghost, when we put that in spot lock when it's on the shaft, it's going to move with the motor because that motor's always moving, keeping us in spot. So we lose the ability to find fish and stay on fish because it's going to move with our trolling motor. So that's a big con for those guys that are offshore, over a brush pile, crappie guys that are wanting to stay on a spot. If they've got that on the trolling motor, that's going to be moving back and forth, and a lot of times it's going to drive you nuts. The second con that I can come up with is when we're wanting to stay on fish, when we found them with our active target, and as they're moving around, being on that shaft, it really creates issues with boat control. So if we're on a windy day, guys staying on that trolling motor, moving it around, we're really working hard to stay on those fish as they're moving because as we know, fish are going to move. They're not just going to stay in one spot. So there's a couple of cons, but there's a lot of pros to having that on the shaft of the trolling motor. Now let's talk about the pros for running a pole mount or a motorized setup on our trolling motor that's independent of the shaft. Today I've got on my boat, I've got the Fishing Specialties mount for my active target. So one of the pros is going to be what we talked about, a con with having it on the shaft of the trolling motor. So when we spot lock, that spot lock, we're in spot lock now, it can move around, keep us in spot, but with this pole mount, I can move this active target transducer wherever those fish are. Again, if I'm a crappie fisherman, if I'm over a brush pile, I've got the ability to move this by hand. If we're moving on fish, if we're chasing them down, I can move this and still be controlling the trolling motor with my foot or my remote, whatever, but I've got the ability to move it where I want. So that's a big thing for those guys that are doing that type of fishing. So another pro of having it on that shaft mount, so I don't have it on this boat, but guys will have a motorized one like a live scanner, a live foot, a right height. There are a lot of options out there, but then we can have an extra foot pedal. So we don't have this piece right here. It's all on the trolling motor. So again, we're not having anything to lay back down on the deck. All gonna be with our trolling motor. So as we pull it up, that's gonna come up with us. So it's all right there like it would be on the shaft, but independent. So we still have that flexibility to stay in spot lock, move where we want. Now let's talk about the cons. So there are some cons. One, obviously, it's cost. We're adding anywhere from $250, $300 for a pole mount that we turn by hand, $650, $700 for a motorized one, on up to $1,300, $1,400, $1,500. So that's a con. We've got extra cost. The second con that I see on a regular basis with this is it's one more thing that I have to stow on the boat. And so when I put this up here, I take it out and I've got to lay it on the deck here. So I tie it down with the rod strap, but I've got one more thing that I've got to mess with when I go to move a spot. So I'm here, I'm fishing, I want to pull up and hit the next spot. I pull my trolling motor up, put my poles down, then I've got to bring this pole up as well. So that would be a con for a hand movement like the fishing specialties mount that I have. That would be a con for you there. The other piece, the con for on the trolling motor is the guys that are worried about power, right? We got a lot of guys that got 2 units at the console, 2 units up front, active target, live scope. We're running a lot of juice, and that's just one more power source that we've got to hook up to pull juice. Now, I will tell you it's not a lot of juice that they're pulling, but as we're talking about pros and cons, we got to throw everything out there. So a con for a motorized system would be we got one more power source that we've got to hook up. And lastly, the last con I can come up with to having a separate pole mounted on the trolling motor is going to be the weight. So again, we talk about we've got active target, live scope, we've got guys that are running Mega 360 as well. So we just keep adding weight. So these trolling motors get harder and harder to pull up, and so that could be a con for some people. Just more weight to have to pull up on the trolling motor. So guys, I hope these pros and cons helped you kind of think about your style of fishing and what would be best suited for you and your application. Comment on our link below and tell us if I missed a pro and con or something that you've come up with. We'd love to hear from you and see what you guys have to think as well. For the guys that are out there doing this all the time, every day. So if you got any questions, give us a call, 316-313-4113, or shoot us an email at sales@russellmarineproducts.com. Guys, we'll see you next time.
Are you tired of your old marine electronics? At R&P, we make trade-in easy. 3 steps. Step 1, shoot us an email, get a quote. Step 2, send us your old unit and get credit. Step 3, get your brand new unit and get installed on your boat today.